Hi everyone, Anne from the Sussex Handmade Soap Company here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to infuse natural plant colourants into oil and then showing you how to use those oils to actually create soaps that are naturally coloured pretty shades of pink, yellow and purple. And to do that we're going to be using certain different plant-based materials. We will be using some annatto seeds. And these are really great at colouring the soap a lovely sunny yellow colour. These particular ones are purchased from DG Store here in the UK, but I do think there's a number of other soap websites that do sell annatto seeds. We will also be using some madder root powder, and this is hopefully going to colour the soap a really pretty pink colour. One of my favourite colourants to use is this one, and this one is from the Soap Makers Store here in the UK. And then we shall be using some indigo powder. You can get green indigo powder and blue indigo powder. We are using the blue. I would always recommend going for the blue. I think it gives a much better colour. And this is from the Crafters shop here in the UK. And lastly, we will be using some Alkanet root, which I'm hoping you can see through this huge amount of packaging. And this is from the Soap Makers Store as well. And I'm going to be infusing all of my colourants into olive oil today. And the reason I'm infusing into olive oil is because olive oil makes up the biggest portion of my soap recipe. And that means that I can kind of adjust how much coloured oil I throw into the recipe to hopefully darken or lighten the final colour of the soap. You can kind of infuse them into other oils if you want to as well. Just have an experiment, have a play. And the first thing we are going to need, apart from a slow cooker, because I am using the quick process to infuse these oils today, so we need a slow cooker for that, which I believe is known as a crock pot in the USA. I think they're the same thing with just different names according to where in the world you are. You can use the slow method, but I'm far too impatient for that. Basically, the slow method is prepared exactly the same way as I'm preparing today, but then it's left naturally to infuse without the aid of the slow cooker, and you just kind of leave it in a dark place for 6 to 8 weeks and the oil will infuse naturally. But we're not going to chat about that because we're not doing that method. So first things first, you need some jars, glasses, bottles to pop in your infusions. I'm only using tiny little jam jars today because I have already got plenty of these infusions, and the only reason I'm making up more today is to show you guys how to do it. If you want to reuse jam jars, as long as there's no kind of cracks or damage to them, that should be fine, but do make sure you have sterilised them properly first and that they are completely dry. You don't want any water or any bacteria getting into these infusions. These are just little jam jars that I've had left over from, you know, well, this is from a curry sauce. Oh, this is from Nonya's Secrets. Actually, she does the most amazing curry sauces. If you like Thai food, check out Nonya's Secrets website. She hasn't told me to say that, it's pure coincidence, but her Thai is, oh my God, it is fabulous. The best Thai sauce in a jar I have ever tasted. So yeah, if you like a good Thai curry, look her up. She's slightly on the pricey side, but it is worth every single penny. But I am sort of diversifying now from where I need to be. So let's get back on track. Jam jars. So these are all sterilised and they are all nice and dry. And what we want to do, we shall start with our madder root. And I am using an infusion rate of 5 grams of plant material to every 100 grams of olive oil. So in the first jar, I'm going to pop in 5 grams of madder root powder. So let's do that now. Pop these to one side and then carefully weighing in 5 grams of the madder root powder. So put that one to one side, and now we shall do the annatto. So I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to take 5 grams of these annatto seeds and pop them into this jar here. And the next one we shall go with the indigo powder. So again, I'm going to pop 5 grams in this jar here. And lastly, I'm going to add in 5 grams of the Alkanet root. And the Alkanet root does smell a little bit strange. That is what it looks like close up. I hope you can see that. But it's got a distinct sort of smell to it. Not too strong, but just a little bit strange. That's all I can describe it as. So we've now got all of our natural colourants weighed out, 5 grams each. And because I'm using 5 grams, I'm going to use 100 grams of olive oil. If I was using 10 grams, I would use 200 grams of olive oil. If I was using 20 grams, I would use 400 grams of olive oil. It is basically just 5 grams of plant material to every 100 grams of oil. So I've got the olive oil weighed out here, and I'm just going to pour it carefully into the madder portion. That's 100 grams of olive oil going into 5 grams of madder root powder. Now I'm going to repeat the process and pop 100 grams of olive oil into each of these other jars. And now that these are all correctly filled with 5 grams of plant material and 100 grams of oil, I'm just going to pop a lid on each of them, nice and tight. And then I'm going to take a little piece of a sticky label, and all I'm going to do is pop this onto the top of the jar and then make a note of what is inside. So in this case it is madder powder and olive oil. And I'm going to write the date that it was created as well. So today is the 25th of the 11th, 2020. Just so that in future I know when this was created and what it is. I'm going to do the same with these 3 jars now. So now they're all labelled, I'm just going to give them a very quick shake just to try and incorporate that powder with the olive oil, and then I'm going to bring the slow cooker into the picture and we'll move on to the next step. So here we have the bowl from our slow cooker, and all I'm going to do is making sure that the lids are on properly, just place the jars inside the bowl of the slow cooker, like so. And all I need to do now is just fill the slow cooker bowl with cool water, and I'm aiming to go about 2/3 of the way up the jam jars. We don't want to fill it right up to the top because we don't want to risk any of the water getting inside the jam jars, so we're going about 2/3 of the way up with cool water. That should do it. And now it is very, very simple. I'm just going to return this bowl to the actual slow cooker, turn it on to high, and I'm going to leave it on high for probably between 3 and 6 hours. And then after 6 hours is up, I'm going to turn the slow cooker off, and I'm going to leave these jars in here just to cool down naturally by themselves, and I shall come back to them later and we shall show you the next step with processing these oils ready for use. So the jars are out of the slow cooker now. We've left them in there for the allotted amount of time. They're nice and cool now, and you can already see just the colour of that olive oil, how much it has changed. And there's one more step we need to do to get these properly ready for use in soap, and that is to actually strain them. And we are using a muslin cloth. This is clean. It has been stained because I've used it so many times for straining my colourants, but it is washed, it is clean, it just looks a little stained. And we're just going to pop that in the jug, and then I'm going to show you this with the Annatto. We're just going to open it up, and then we are pouring the oil into the jug through the muslin cloth. And that is just to catch the seeds and everything that you don't want going into the soap. To be honest, with the madder and the indigo, you would probably get away without straining, but the actual final soap wouldn't have such an even, nice, smooth colour to it. And obviously you don't want annatto seeds going into the soap, which is why we are straining. I'm just going to scoop up the edges of the muslin. And then just give it a little squeeze to make sure all of that oil is out. And now we have the oil ready to be used in the soap. I'm just going to repeat that process with the madder, the indigo and the alkanet portions now, but I'm not going to show you me doing that because it's just literally me sieving oil through muslin cloth, which is neither interesting nor particularly informative because I've already shown you me doing it with one of them anyway. And my video is going to be verging on the long side today, so I'm not going to show you me doing the other three, but it's exactly the same as what we've just done. So once you've followed all those steps and you've strained your oil through the muslin cloth, you'll be left with just the nice brightly coloured infused olive oils. And here I have got the indigo powder in this one here. It's kind of got a nice purplish tint to it there. And then we've got the Annatto here, which is such a vibrant, bright orange. Then we have got the Alkanet, which is like a cherry red colour at the moment. And lastly, we have got the madder root powder here, which is kind of a orangey sort of colour. So now to actually make soap with these, I'm going to be replacing the olive oil portion of my soap completely with the infused olive oil. So what I've done is I have created a batch of oils, all of the other oils that go into our soaps I have melted down together, and now I'm going to add the appropriate amount into each one of these jugs to bring it up to the correct level for the soap we're making, and then we're going to add in the lye water and pour out little small portions of each of these just to show you the kind of colours that you can create with the infused oils. So now we're going to take these oils one at a time and we're just going to add in the rest of the melted solid and liquid oils just into each portion like this. And I'm going to repeat this process with the other three colours, with the madder, the alkanet and the annatto, and get the rest of the liquid oils into the jugs. And if you're questioning why I'm not yet wearing gloves or goggles, it is because we are not yet using any lye water. We're nowhere near the lye at the moment. The lye is completely out of the picture. So if I was to spill or splash some of this oil onto me, it would be a little bit greasy, but not burny. So we're not wearing gloves or goggles yet, but we shall be as soon as the lye comes into the picture. Right, let's get the rest of the oil into the other three jugs now. So now we've got the oil going into the annatto portion, and oil going into the alkanet portion. And just for reference, we are trying to go for a temperature of around about 115 degrees Fahrenheit today with our oils and our lye solution. We might be a couple of degrees off either side, but it's not a major thing, but we're just going for around about that. We're going for a slightly higher temperature because we want these colours to gel, and soaping at a higher temperature does help them to gel. And lastly, we have got our oils going into our madder infused olive oil. And now that these are all in, I am going to put on my gloves and my goggles, and then we're going to bring in the correct amount of lye for each of these jugs. And then it's just like normal soap making really. We're going to bring it to a light trace with the stick blender, then we're going to pour it into moulds, gel it, turn it out tomorrow, and see the kind of colours we've created. Right, so gloves and goggles safely on. We've got our cooled lye water here. We're just going to add this, and we're beginning by working with the indigo colourant today. So we're just going to get all that lye water in, and then I'm going to carefully, because this jug's quite full, bring it to a light trace using the stick blender. And as you can see, all of that beautiful purple colour has changed to a rather sad looking grey. But don't worry, if we do things correctly, it should change again when it gels and when it cures. Now we're going to bring in this little cavity mould, which we're going to use today. And I'm just going to fill up one cavity with the indigo. There we go. Right, now I'm going to work with this lovely bright orange annatto portion. So again, the cooled lye water going in. Scraping down to make sure I get all of that lye water, or as much as possible, out into the jug. And then as before, we're going to use the stick blender to bring it to a light trace. So there we go, and as you can see we've got a gorgeous sunshine yellow colour going on, so we're going to get this one into the mould now as well. And I'm just going to tip this one down in here. And I love the colour the Annatto goes, it's such a gorgeous, gorgeous yellow colour. So 2 down, 2 to go. So now we work with the Alkanet, and you will notice that this beautiful cherry red colour doesn't stick around for long. I'm fully expecting another kind of dirty grey, purpley tinted colour once this one has been whizzed in, but that's okay, it's the beauty of natural colourants. So we're going in again with the stick blender and just bringing it to a light trace, and as I blend, just watch how the colour does change. So as predicted, that lovely cherry red colour is now a kind of purpley bluey grey colour. But again, these will all change as they gel and as they cure. This will hopefully turn a nice purpley pink colour if we do things correctly. Let's get it in the mould. Let's go here. Lovely, so lastly we've got the madder to do, and we're going in with the lye, and the madder is actually one natural colourant that I think looks prettier after it's been mixed with the lye. Unlike the indigo and the alkanet that both kind of go those murky colours, I actually think the addition of the lye after whizzing, the madder actually looks much prettier than it does to start off with. So let's get the stick blender in and you can see if you agree with me. So there we are, we have now got what I think is kind of a really pretty, pale, dusky pink colour. Let's get this one in the mould. So here we have our 4 main colours. We've got our indigo, our annatto, our alkanet and our madder. As you will have seen, I have got a little bit of colour left over, so just for fun I'm going to mix some together. And the way I'm going to do that is literally just by tipping the remainder of the annatto, or at least most of it. I'm going to leave a little bit, but most of it into there and just mixing with the spatula. Let's pop it in this one here. At the minute it's kind of just a strange browny colour, but we'll see what happens. There we go. And lastly, why not mix the other 2 colours? So we'll mix our indigo and our alkanet together and see what happens there as well. In with the indigo into the alkanet. Let's combine them together. Indigo and alkanet are both kind of going to hopefully give us sort of purple shades, so I don't necessarily think by mixing these 2 together that it'll be creating a colour that's particularly different, but it's all about experimenting, and we might end up creating a colour that's different, or that's just, you know, different enough to be incorporated as a different shade in a soap. So if there's leftover batter and the chance to have a little play about, why not have a little play about? And I'm really tempted just to kind of, you know, mess up your chi to pour this one in here, but that would actually mess up my own chi as well, so I'm going to pour it in this one here and keep going with the kind of theme of where I've been placing them. You can see the batter is thickening up now. So here we have it, our selection of natural themed colourants. And it is very, very important that these do go through gel phase. If they don't go through gel phase, it's highly likely the alkanet will stay this kind of weird purpley grey colour. It's likely the indigo won't change colour, and these ones won't be as vibrant as they could otherwise have been. So I'm going to pop them into my little seed propagator to gel. I shall probably be talking more about my seed propagator in the coming week's videos. Oh, I don't think I've introduced it yet, but I shall introduce it next week. Or you can pop it into an oven that has been warmed to about 50 degrees centigrade and then turned off. Leave the oven light on, pop the soap inside, obviously not on a plastic tray, but you know, safety first, you guys know that stuff. I'm not going to patronise you by telling you about what can and can't go in an oven. So yeah, just pop it in an oven, 50 degrees, turned off, light left on, leave it in there overnight if you can, and that will hopefully help to prevent, no it won't, it will hopefully help to promote gel phase. There you go, tongue twister, words muddled up. We'll see you tomorrow when we're going to pop these out and show you the colours that they've turned so far. So about 24 hours later, the soaps have all now been turned out of the mould and you can see the colours that we have created. So this first one here is the Madder Root, and we've got a really beautiful pink shade going on there. And then we've got the Annatto, which is a really bright, vibrant yellow. Then we've got the Alkanet, which is still a kind of greyish purple, but as it cures I would expect that to change. It will develop. Alkanet does take a little bit longer to actually kind of morph into its final colour, so I would expect that to change a little more. And then we've got the Indigo Powder here, and this is actually paler than a lot of the times when I use indigo. Normally when I use indigo powder it does come out a little bit darker than this. I wouldn't actually mind betting that if I was to cut this bar in half it would actually be darker in the middle. But again, this will change as it cures and I expect that colour will actually deepen a little bit. And then we have got the two that I created by mixing the shades. So for this one here, we have got a gorgeous kind of peachy orange colour. And this was a shade that we created at the end purely by mixing the Annatto and the Madder colours together. So we've mixed those two and we've created this one. And I think it's a really pretty kind of colour trio there. I think you could make a nice kind of sunset soap using just these three shades together. And similarly here we have got the bar where we mixed the indigo and the Alkanet together. So it's a little bit darker than the indigo one and a little bit lighter than the Alkanet one, but again this may well change during the cure. So it's all well and good me showing you these bars as they are straight out of the mould 24 hours after having been made, but in reality you guys are going to want to see what these look like after they've been cured for 4 to 6 weeks and are ready to either use or sell. Because if you've got a beautiful colour now, but in 4 to 6 weeks time it's faded down to completely white and it's barely noticeable, that's not going to be useful and it's not going to be great for using in soap. So if I get rid of these, it just so happens that I have some I made earlier. This here is a Madder infused bar and I made it exactly the same way that I made this one yesterday. Only difference is I made this one about 8 weeks ago. So we've got the colour there, and as you can see the bar that was made 8 weeks ago is slightly paler than the fresh bar, but it's not a huge difference. It's still pink and it's still pretty. So pop that one down there. And then we move on to the Annatto. And again, it's still yellow. It's definitely not as vibrant. There's no denying that it has faded a little, but again, this is 8 weeks old now and it is still holding that yellow colour and it still looks pretty. And it's still a really nice yellow shade that you could definitely use in a soap. What is going on with my camera? It's getting darker and darker and darker. Must be some sort of white balance issue there. But let's pop it down on the tray there. Right, I've had a little stop and a play about and tried to set that camera back to more of a real life colour because that was getting very, very colour rich back then. Right, now onto the Alkanet. And this one here is the Alkanet that was made 8 weeks ago. So you can see there is a colour difference. This one is faded to a pale purple, almost a sort of lilac-y shade. And this one is obviously still darker. But again, side by side, this one's slightly pinker perhaps, but there's not a massive colour difference. So it does show that this will stick in soap. And the last one is the Indigo. And as you can see, in terms of the 8-week-old indigo, it's actually slightly pinker, slightly purpler, slightly darker than the one we just made yesterday. So this colour has actually developed over time and actually become a little bit deeper and a little bit prettier. And unfortunately, I haven't yet made any older bars of the Annatto and Madder orange or the Alkanet and Indigo purple, so I can't show you what they're going to look like after 4 to 8 weeks. However, I would imagine, especially in the case of this orange one, because those two colours stick fairly well, I'd imagine it'll get a little bit paler but still be nice and orange. But that is only a guess, I can't guarantee that. But hopefully you found this a little bit useful, a little bit helpful. I just think that natural colours are so nice to work with, but they do require a little bit of practice and a little bit of experimentation. So hopefully this has shown you what can be achieved with just a small amount of colourants. There's so many natural colourants you can play with, but this is just to give you a tester of some of my favourite ones and my favourite colours to work with. So thank you for watching today's video. I hope you found it helpful. I hope it's perhaps given you a bit of inspiration on the kind of colours you can create naturally. Next week we are actually going to be changing things up just a little bit. Those of you that have watched our videos in the past know that we just tend to create random recipes that we don't generally sell, and it's all a bit of fun. However, from next week we are actually going to be creating a whole new range that we are actually going to be selling. There's going to be a few little minor changes which I will explain then, because there's no point going into them now. But yeah, slight changes next week, but expect some of the colourants that we have created today to be featured in the soaps that are upcoming over the next few weeks. So yeah, if you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a like. If you haven't already, do subscribe to our channel, and we shall see you next Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Bye!